Episode 7 of Dandadan was a storytelling masterpiece. Never in my wildest dreams would I have expected such a heartwarming but most importantly, heartbreaking episode to come out from this goofy series. A show with aliens and ghosts and missing dick and balls. I thought it would be just lighthearted fun with amazing animation and fight choreography, like most shonen mega hits these days. But in just one episode, it proved me wrong. Maybe that's why it hit me harder than I thought it would, because it came from out of left field. I was hit at point blank range with the feels and can't help but to let out a few tears. It also doesn't help that it was a story about a parent and a child, which is my greatest weakness when watching a show or film. I was speechless after the episode ended. I normally let the ending song play out after watching an episode, but not this time. It was too happy of a song and I can't be listening to it right now. So I pushed my chair out and just sat there for a good 5 minutes to sort out my feelings. After I calmed down, I started writing the script right away, so here we are. First things first, I have a confession to make. I've actually read a good chunk of the Dandadan manga years ago. I read past this arc and didn't really think deeply about it that much. I thought it was just another weird arc with a ballerina ghost and that's it. I didn't even remember the backstory, to be honest with you. If you want an explanation as to why, I won't be able to provide a concrete answer even if I try, just some educated guess. You see, I stopped watching anime back in 2018 and shifted my focus on reading manga full-time. In my heyday, I was reading 150 plus ongoing manga and one of them was Dandadan, this new hot shonen jump series that just came out. It was something I've never seen before. It was weird and strange, but the art was phenomenal. So, I read it weekly, together with the 150 plus manga that I'm already keeping up with. So maybe that's the reason why I can't remember that much from this arc. I didn't pay enough attention to it at the time. But after experiencing it essentially for the first time because of my shit memory, I went back and read this arc in the manga to see if it hits harder than it did watching it. The Acro Silky arc was 2 episodes in the anime, adapting 6 chapters in the manga. 3 chapters per episode, which is a pretty good pacing for an adaptation. The anime adapted the manga pretty faithfully. It's almost one-to-one with some artistic interpretation added to enhance the story. I'll say this now, the backstory in the manga didn't hit as hard than it did in the anime. This might be the most obvious conclusion to arrive with considering that the anime provides so much more than a drawing in a paper. The animation, voice acting, soundtrack, sound design, and many more adds so much to the experience. But aside from all that, it didn't hit hard as much in the manga because it was so short. It ended so quickly I was actually surprised. In the anime, the whole backstory from her waking up in a motel, coming home to her daughter, spending time with her, working multiple jobs as a single mother, escalating to the most brutal thing you can do to a mother, snatching her child away from her arms, to her desperately looking for her in the streets, which eventually leads to her tragic death. That was 6 minutes of pure sadness and heartache. In the manga though, it was only 11 pages. It felt like a speedrun almost. Panels just show a scene and immediately moves to the next. There was so little emotional build-up, but I guess you can argue that it's up to the reader to fill in those gaps, but still. I feel like the backstory in the manga could have been fleshed out a little more, but I guess it's not a problem anymore because we have this amazing adaptation. The opening sequence was, I thought, a very artistic and brilliant way to foreshadow what happens later on. More action spectacle follows, which was amazing as well. The use of color in this adaptation is very creative. They put so much character and identity in each of the scenes where it's utilized. Ira is dead, or at least dying, which triggers the emotional spark of this episode. Acro Silky's mother nature overcomes her emotional rampage and decides to sacrifice herself for her daughter. I don't care what you say, that's her daughter and I'll fight you on that. The backstory. Oh, the backstory ripped my heart to pieces. Like I said in the beginning, stories about parent and child, especially parents sacrificing everything for their children, is my greatest weakness. Without fail, tears will come out in my eyes and you can't do anything about it. This is why my favorite anime film of all time is Wolf Children. It's also a story about motherhood and the struggles that comes with it. If you have the time, you should watch it. It's a beautiful film. But going back, after all the sacrifices and love that Acro Silky gave to her child, she was taken away from her just like that. This made her desperate and emotionally wrecked, emotionally unstable, and jump off a building in the most elegant way imaginable. She became a ghost afterwards, and this is when Ira thought she was her mother. We also learned that Ira's true mother just died, which puts another layer to the story. She finally wakes up. Both her and Momo felt the emotions and all the hurt that Acro Silky feels, as seen from their very different but valid reactions to it. I think in the whole episode, this line from Acro Silky was what really broke me the most. I wish I could have bought you more clothes. I wish I could have played with you a lot more. If you weren't born as my child, you would have been so much happier. I made you so unfortunate. I'm so sorry. Just reading those lines, I'm actually beginning to tear up right now. My heart tightens up just remembering that scene. It's such a heartbreaking thing to say, and no parent should think and feel like that for their child. But the world is unfair and cruel, and as much as we hate it, it's a very real thing that happens. Now at this point, Acro Silky is disintegrating because she gave all her aura to Ira and is guaranteed to be trapped to nothingness, as she still has lingering regrets in this world. But Ira, at the last minute, acknowledged Acro Silky as her mother and wished for her to be taken in a kinder world so that no one can hurt her anymore. It was a beautiful send-off and a perfect way to end the story. Studio Science Saru really elevated the source material to even greater heights. If you didn't know about this studio, they are known for their wacky and stylistic animation style. It's very distinct, so you'll recognize it right away. And the weirdness of Dandadan suits the studio perfectly. It was a match made in heaven. It's the anime equivalent of Find Somebody that matches your freak. Speaking of freak, Yukinobu Tatsu, the author of Dandadan himself. What the fuck was he smoking writing Dandadan? I actually read an article about him a while back about how his editor made him read hundreds of shoujo manga because the only thing that he's pitching to him are all battle shonens. Editor was so fucking based for that because we got a compelling romance that reads and develops like a shoujo manga in a battle shonen series. That's even rarer than Togashi drawing Hunter x Hunter in this day and age. But kidding aside, I would like to think reading hundreds of shoujo manga not only made him write a compelling romance, but also beautiful stories like this one. We get a glimpse of it with a Turbo Grande backstory, showing a surprising emotional depth to the character, same with Acro Silky. In another interview, Yukinobu Tatsu actually shared why the ghosts and monsters on Dandadan are the way they are. And I quote, "Many of the elements of monster stories are inspired by tragic events from the past, so I wanted to make it a bit more entertaining and fun. Even when listening to various ghost stories, monsters and spirits were originally human, and they didn't become what they wanted to be, so they don't feel like villains. I think they are people who are struggling with their own conflicts." End quote. Focusing on the human element to flesh out these monsters is, I think, the best decision that he made because it clearly resonated to a lot of people in ways that many shonen series fail. Because I'll say it again, this is rare for a battle shonen manga. You can only see this type of writing from experienced authors like Oda for One Piece, and I think that's it. I haven't felt this move emotionally by any other battle shonen manga aside from those two. I've teared up multiple times watching and reading One Piece, and now this arc of Dandadan. Other than that, I get nothing. And that just goes to show how special this episode of Dandadan truly is.